when the daddy ball comes in, it never stops. I mean, I had a situation in New Fairfield where a head coach was playing his kid at quarterback, and I shit you not, we went through 5 centers by week 5 because we were fumbling 30-40% of our sacks.
And it was the center's fault,
it was always
not
the
quarterback.
Right, we didn't even think about switching the quarterback. So you know, and it's things like that. It's like, you know, don't you want your kid to succeed? And like, don't you want your kid to win? Like, is it winning?
Well, it goes back to the vision part of it, you know, and this is and again, you alluded to something early in the just a moment ago. I take pride, at least myself, and anyone that knows me knows this about me. When it came to my son, my sons, even my daughter, I know what they are. I know what they are. I know what their strengths are. I know what their weaknesses are. But I know what they are as athletes.
Well, I've never pretended either.
I've never pretended, and I've never said X, Y, and Z.
And you've also said to him, I've seen you say to him, hey, what do you want to fucking fold? You want to fold now or what?
Right.
Like, now's the time to pick up the skirt and move forward. What are you going to do? I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
it's fine,
interrupt.
and it's a great point, but I'm saying I never over-assessed or over-evaluated any of my children, okay, and what they are. I know what their potentials are, and I've been correcting those potentials every year. I know what they have that others don't, okay, but I also know what they don't have. So when you say, what are they, I always classify them completely unbiased, because I'm a hypocrite if I do that. The only joy I get out of it is saying, I told you so, when they've continually progressed. To add to what you're saying, we just came back from the Pop and Flow Nationals this weekend. So you want to talk about a perfect example of how Daddy Ball does not exist in real sports and real coaching. We had 3 kids on our U team that were wrestling at the high school level, as well as our U team, and they didn't lose. Okay? As Chris puts them, one of them, I don't want to say their names because I don't want their parents to get upset. One we refer to as a garanimal, okay? We had 3 garanimals on our team that literally wrestled to high school and then would come back and wrestle middle school, and those kids did not lose a match at either level. So I want to know, okay, what are they? They're studs. That's a stud.
Right. Yeah.
That's a stud. When you could do that in any sport and be that successful, that's a stud. That's what eliminates any discussion about my kid, daddy ball, daddy ball.
But I think the difference between how you approached it and how some of these other parents have approached it, and I kind of got it. I was watching this comedy special, Brendan Schaub's new comedy special, which is out. Wow, you'd be surprised. Really good. But at the end, he talks about how, like, you know, his dad's dream for him was to be this MMA star, and he was always trying to fulfill his dad's dream. And I find, like, the way he asks his kids questions, it's, do you really want to do this? Is this what you really want to do? Versus, you're going to go out there, you're going to do this, and we're going to make it happen. Like, and these dads are living vicariously through their kids,
right,
rather than asking their kids and getting the kids to qualify their own thoughts. Like, the Worm is wrestling at the highest level, not because he's forcing that kid, because that kid's a killer. That kid loves doing it.
Right.
Like, there's times where he hates it and he doesn't want to do certain things, and he may question it, but that's why he keeps going back to it.
Right.
You know, and I think it's definitely the way that it's been dressed. Being that you've coached for so long, I was recently talking to one of my old wrestling coaches who explained, he's like, man, he's like, Frank, it's totally different now. It's not the same way back in the day where we used to, like, cut the shit, everybody on the line, we're sprinting until we're done type of deal.
Right.
He's got to, like, hey, he can't raise his voice at all. Do you? And granted, he's been doing it at the high school level for such a long time, and sure, it's different than maybe youth sports, but being that you've gone through the decade, have you seen a change in the mental fortitude, the toughness? Because I really do think that's what separates. I hate to put it on the good athletes, because sure, the good athletes are going to shine either way, but you almost think that those kids are able to stand out and shine even more now, because so many of these kids are because they're raised that way, right? I don't want to dance around it.
100%.
These kids are aggressive naturally. I've seen two boys go at it and the other one just take the toy out of it and smack them upside the
Right.
head, because that's what naturally happens, right? It's in our DNA.
Right.
And then the mother comes over and goes, no,
fixes it.
yeah, this is, and do you see that change?
So yeah, so I
How have you addressed it?
It's funny because it varies from town to town. One of my seasons coaching, actually, I said I coached in New Fairfield for 8 years. One of those seasons, I was actually a Bethel Wildcat because we didn't have enough kids in New Fairfield. Kind of go back to the numbers thing. We didn't have enough kids. They didn't have enough kids. We got together. Worst thing we could have ever done. It was awful, but whatever. It happened.
You made it work.
Yeah, make it work. So you know what? Another year that kids could play football that they may not have been able to play football. Our first practice in Bethel, and this is back when I was kind of a bit crazier on conditioning. Like I said, I'm not that way anymore. But I was, that's the way I was. I was the sprint coach, and I was the hill coach. That's what it was. And so. It was our first practice in Bethel, and I told the head coach, because they had elected that they would be the head coaches, whatever. So I told the head coach, I said, well, I'll condition them at the end. And he said, okay, well, what are you thinking? And I said, all right, well, we'll run, the 5-yard snakes up and down the field. We'll do 50s. We'll just do a 50-yard snake. He was like, oh.
Here it comes.
All right. And I was like, he was like, all right, just like, kind of take it easy on them because all the parents are here.
Oh my Lord.
I said, well, all right, they're gonna run. Like I'm not gonna hit them. Like they're just gonna run. Like,
All conditioning.
Yeah, we're gonna condition. And he was
We're
like,
not
okay,
gonna
just
flog
I'm not throwing rocks at him. I'm not running.
and he was like, well, just make sure you take it easy. And I was like, oh, okay.
Use
And
your
then-
inside voice.
And then not for nothing, I look and this is the organization that not to I don't mean to demean any organization, but the year before that, their entire organization collectively, the 4 teams won 1 game.
Right.
So and that's that attitude, right? That's the same team that another example. We were playing the Trumbull Rangers, I think they are. Team that honestly we had no business playing that team, right? Just really no business. They waxed us by 40.
Right.
But anyway, Randy Benitez actually broke his finger in that game, and he hurt his finger, and he was holding it, and I could see, and he was trying to hide it,
Right.
Because that's the kind of kid he is. But then he looked at it, and it was all crooked and mangled, and he just coached. And so he comes out, and so we get a sub in, and there was a kid there from Bethel, and Coach, is Randy all right? Is he okay? Are they going to get an ambulance? Or is he going home? Is he going to the hospital? And I turned around and I said the kid's name. I said, little Joey. I said, are you a doctor or are you a football player? And he said, I'm a football player. I said, okay, let the doctors worry about Randy's finger and let's worry about getting back to this football game.
And not to put you on pause, I come from an age where my teammate in the huddle the coach is there, goes, Coach, I think there's something wrong with my hand, Coach. And he goes, oh, cool, let me see it. Get back out in the game.
Right.
That's, and
Right.
it's just like, is it an injury or are you hurt?
Right.
You
Well,
know?
so he goes and he gets an ambulance and they take him to the hospital, and that was it. But at Bethel, there's no stands, and the parents are very close to the sidelines. And I got an email from my head coach saying, we got an email from that player's mother because she overheard what you had said,
Oh, God.
and we should also be teaching them to have
Compassion.
to have compassion for their teammates, and
After
that's
the
part
game.
of being a teammate. And I said, I can appreciate all that, but my job is to keep them focused, right? These
right.
are 13-year-old kids. We need to stay laser focused because that's the only way we're going to
Injuries are going to happen. You have to keep going.
Right, and that's the only way we're going to. And I thought it was a good lesson for the kid to say, okay, I can block that out. I can stay focused.
And
on
I'll
my
ask you when the
assignment, my
game is
job.
over.
Right.
Well,
maybe as when the game is over, maybe we all go to the hospital together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who
Once
knows?
upon a time, I'm going to leave out names, but we're at a wrestling tournament in Rhode Island, and somebody's kid threw up all over the mat, and then was taken into the locker room, and his godfather went in there, and he came back out and won 3 matches. So, to your point, guess what? The kids are different.
Yeah.
They're different. The parents are different. The families are different. And just to circle back to what we were talking about earlier about, why does the number, particularly New Fairfield, go from 240 to 83 last year? All the things you said, 100% correct. Everyone interjected. The culture's not there. They're putting the kids aren't tough enough. Number one, it's not a knock on anybody. It's not for everybody. Not everyone can play football. Not everyone can wrestle. Okay, just like listen, I'll take it to the other extreme. Listen, not everyone can swim. You throw me in a pool, I'm sinking to the bottom. I mean, but there's certain intangibles, like you said, that only certain sports can teach, and it takes a certain particular athlete, male or female, to do those things. So there is no culture there, and because of the pussification, okay, of the youth.
We're saying
okay?
that, he's not saying that.
Yeah. So of the youth is why you had that issue there, and the winning cultures in New Fairfield are lacrosse and baseball. They are not football. So people are going to jump on those bandwagons, and rightfully so.
Well, that's
so,
the thing. Winning fixes everything.
Winning fixes. We're talking about that, and winning fixes everything. So tell us why did you ultimately leave New Fairfield to take another coaching position?
So what happened, man, this is a tough one to talk about. 'Cause I have a lot of great memories in New Fairfield.
Yeah,
I've built a lot of great relationships in New Fairfield.
It's like I always said, man, no one ever disputes anyone's good experiences anywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Basically what happened was I coached there for whatever it was, 6 or 7 years. I took a year off to start grad school. And as kind of, I'm sure people know with youth sports, kind of every 4 or 5 years, the whole board turns over.
It's a rotation.
Right, because as kids leave, it's the parents that are involved, and I understand that. But it just so happened that in that year that I took off, everybody kind of got rotated through. And so I came back in as the new guy.
New regime now.
Right, and so I went to a meeting and I said, I took this year off because I had started grad school and I kind of wanted to get a handle on grad school and just focus on that.
Sure.
But I'm back now and I'd love to kind of, come back and volunteer my time. I've been a head coach before, I've had influential positions before, but that being said, I know that nobody on this board knows me. I know that none of you kind of really know me from a home wall because it's just youth football in New Fairfield. So,
And you have no kids in the school, so you
Right.
can't even say we've met at the...
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. I was a little bit benefited by the fact that my mom worked in the school system for a while, so a few parents knew me here and there. But the big thing, I just kind of came in and said, I want to be humble about it. I've been a head coach before, I've been an OC, I've been a DC, I'm more comfortable on the offensive side of the ball, but just to get back into the Falcons organization, wherever I'm needed, I'll go. And so I went with a team, and I was the DC, and there was a little bit of a clash in coaching styles with other coaches, but overall it was a pretty good season, and it went pretty well. And so the next season rolls around, and I say, now I need to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator. That's what I'm requesting, and I don't think that's outrageous. I've given 9 years to the program.
That's right.
I'll look at any other coach there, with the exception of one coach. I'd put my resume up against any one of them. And I was told that, well, if you want to be a defensive coach, there's a spot for you. Otherwise, everything's kind of full right now. And I said, all right, oh well, no disrespect, it's just kind of the way things are shaking out. It's just the way things are happening. And I said, yeah, well, I hear you, but I've given this town 9 years, and I've never been paid a dime. And I was getting up on Saturday mornings for practice, and I was getting up on Sunday mornings for games, and I was the one doing all this volunteer stuff. And I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm just looking for when I want to do it again. Let me do it again. I mean, and not for nothing, not to blow smoke on my own skirt or anything, but I'm a pretty good coach. If you look at my record, I kind of got it together.
Your resume speaks for itself.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of thing. That's sort of, I'll build into that with New Milford in a minute. But that's sort of why when that happened, I said, okay, I guess I've been long, maybe because I haven't had a son that's playing football. For a long time I've been able to stay out of the politics of youth football, but I guess I'm in it now.
Well, it's funny, I was saying to you yesterday, here you are, you lay down so people can walk all over you.
Right.
And then they complain that you're not flat enough.
Right, exactly. I mean, when I went to that meeting at Biscotti's, I had another coach who, a dad who volunteers as a coach, I don't want to call him a coach, tell me that, me teaching the kids the single wing is the stupidest thing I could do because, they're never going to use that again in their football careers. And whether or not he's right or wrong, maybe they won't use that scheme, but they are going to learn how to block and they are going to learn how to tackle. So they will use that stuff. But to put me on blast like that in front of all the other coaches, in front of the board that I'm actively right now basically applying for a job for, and you've never met me before, you've never seen me coach, you don't know, so that really rubbed me the wrong way. So then I started looking around at other towns. Looked in Danbury, looked in Brewster, looked in New Milford. And New Milford, I'll be honest with you, man, it's hard wearing green. Being a lifelong Falcon in Fairfield, it was hard. But you know what? Kids are kids. And they're the same. They're the same kids, essentially.
So I guess the process.
But it will be nice though when you're what do you call it, a single wing.
Yeah.
When your single wing whoops up on there.
Well, so right, so well, here's the thing, right? So and it's kind of funny because the team that I went to, they were 1-7 the year before I joined, and this past season we went 6-2 in the regular season, lost the championship to the same team that we lost twice to in the regular season. That team went to Indiana, and nobody else could beat them either. So that was just dumb luck that they were in our league. Got a call. Hey, Falcons, we may have a spot for you now. Oh, yeah, of course. Now there's a spot for me.
We'd like you to run that single wing. Too.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. Of course, now that you see. But, why didn't I have any trust? Why didn't I have any faith kind of built in me from the years that I had put in? And aside from that, you look at the process of becoming a coach, right? So I'll just give you an idea of so that was the new Fairfield process. Go to Biscotti's and, have a couple beers and have a couple pops, as you guys say.
I ain't gonna lie, that sounds like a damn good process to me, but I'm not a football
But
coach.
to select your coaches, right? So whereas New Milford, I submitted an application to the president, and the football president and the league president, because that's just the way the organization is built, met with me at a Starbucks with the two new high school coaches of New Milford High School. The president and the commissioner of the league, of the Bulls, didn't say a word. The high school coaches conducted the interview. I left, they gave their recommendation, they talked, whatever, and then the board comes together and selects. Now that's the way it should be done. I mean, granted why should the high school get to decide everything they're doing? They're not. The board still gets a say.
But let's be honest, they really should.
But
because
why wouldn't they?
They're the ones taking the kids.
Why wouldn't you? But even still, for the development of the
Could you
kids,
get me
why
the,
wouldn't
stick,
you
please?
work
He's
together?
not letting me say a word here.
Why wouldn't you? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm working on my Shayism.
So I do feel two ways about that, because
He messed me up.
That was actually something that came up in the interview. Was they said we know you're a single wing guy, but how would you feel about you doing some of our stuff to get them ready for high school?
That was a question I was going to ask you. When we were in youth football, Brookfield had a system.
Mm-hmm.
Their system started at U2 or whatever the hell year they start at, and it was the same thing ran all the way through high school. So these kids knew.
That's why they won 2 state titles.
And that's why they want you. So my
last
question for you
6
is,
years.
does that make sense? Because it seems like it makes sense to my uneducated football
So
brain.
there is a certain value to that, and here's what I'll say, and I don't. I want to preface this with I don't.
Because it sounds like that's what New Milford's trying to get you to incorporate.
Correct,
some.
and so-
like, hey, we run this defense in high school, and if we start running it now, they're going to be experts by the time they get into high school.
So here's what I say to that, and I do recognize the value in that. I want to preface with that. I do totally see that, and it sounds like it makes sense.
Right, it sounds
on
like
face
it,
value.
yeah.
So here's what I'll say. I coach 10-year-olds. You cannot ask a 10-year-old to do the same thing you ask a 17-year-old to do. That's
Sure.
number one. Sure. Okay? Anytime I see a U10 team line up with 4 wide receivers, I don't understand what they're doing. I just don't understand what they're doing, right? You're taking 4 guys out of the league. Not for nothing. If I have a wide receiver 20 yards away from me, you can't hit him in his stance. Never mind when he runs
Downfield,
around.
yeah.
Right? So I don't understand any of that. But what I will say is this. Okay, well, we'll learn our terminology. Okay, well, isn't that what freshman and JV ball is for? Not for, and I hate to put it out there, but, they say, oh, well, do it in Pop Warner because Pop Warner doesn't count. Well, freshman and JV ball doesn't really count either. So that's when you learn that. Well, why can't they learn the system? Well, because instead, we form tackle every day, and we down block every day. And I'm going to give you kids that know how to block and know how to tackle.
So you can
and
play
know
somewhere
how
you
to
want.
win. Right. That's what I will give you. I will give you a kid that knows how to block, knows how to tackle, and has won, and likes to win. And with that kid, you do with what you want. So that's number one. Number two, the reality of youth football, and it sucks, but the reality is I have 22 kids on my team. 7 of them are playing varsity football, maybe, right? 3 kids are going to be potheads. 2 kids are going to start a band. 1 kid's going to be too into skateboarding. It's just the way it is, right? So now I got to do something for 22 kids that.
That's a very
right?
small minority is going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And now the final piece, and I say this with no disrespect to anybody. With Brookfield, maybe it's a certain situation. With a school like Massac, maybe it's a certain situation. With a school like private schools that we were talking about earlier, Iona, Chaminade. With schools like that, maybe it makes sense. But when I sat in this interview, and I meant no disrespect by it, and I hope when he sees this, he understands I mean no disrespect by it. But I said to the head coach, I said, Coach, you're coming into your first year in New Milford High School. My kids are 10. They're gonna play varsity football in 7 years. You're gonna be the coach in 7 years? Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Could be running a whole different offense.
Right, and he said, well, I hope so. And I said, Coach, I hope so too. But the reality is, it's a maybe, maybe not. So doesn't it make more sense to just teach them the fundamentals? And he said, well, I know just that, I had a quarterback one year. He came in and he knew my system and he knew all my plays and it was great.
The outlier.
Right, and I said, well, wouldn't you rather have all those other kids been able to block and been able to tackle?
Well,
Even if they were subpar.
The problem that happens, and I noticed this specifically going through the new systems in Connecticut, and having gone through a system in New York playing football, it's two different animals. To your point, all Connecticut football cares about is servicing the varsity. They don't care about development.
No.
When I played high school football,
No.
when you played freshman, you didn't play anything but freshman football.
Yeah.
When you were a sophomore, you played nothing but JV.
Yeah.
When you were a junior and senior, you played varsity. That's it. And nobody was called up. And I can tell you, my high school football team, we would have destroyed anybody in Connecticut. Nobody went both ways. Okay, that's how talented we were. Nobody went both ways. All right? X, Y, and Z, we had a great coach, great program, completely different from what my son came through. Okay? And having that, by the time these guys, we got to seniors, we were unstoppable as freshmen. We lost, in my high school career, we lost 2 games in 4 years. So the reality of it is why? Because every year they made sure we got better at that level. And we grew, and we lifted weights. And by the time we were juniors and seniors, it was on the varsity.
Final
The varsity
machine.
was a fine-tuned machine,
Yeah.
and the freshman and JV teams were also fine-tuned machines. So that's the biggest dilemma in Connecticut football, is because they don't.
I don't even understand those rules.
Rules are ridiculous.
Like you can play 6
Yeah.
quarters, but you can
Yeah.
you can split
But
some of it in varsity, and then I go
Delaware.
the next day and they're playing JV, and I just saw them play last night.
I don't
What?
understand why wrestling and football coaches aren't holding hands together.
Well, it's a
I
lag.
don't understand.
Every
What?
season at the end of the year when I break the kids down after our last playoff game, the last 2 words I say to them every year, go wrestle.
Coach, if you're watching this,
Go wrestle.
the Milford High School football coach, if you're watching this, as a Green Wave alumni, your best friend is Coach Peel. I promise you, get your kids to wrestle, and it will be night and day.
Well, I think a lot of coaches are finally realizing it. That's really that's the sport that transitions best.
Night and day.
Yeah, well, it's the best sport transitions to the football field. It's
Even
not-
if you're not good at the sport, you will be better conditioned than anybody else out there. I promise you.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, we're talking athletically speaking, nothing mimics it. It's not lacrosse, it's not baseball, it's not soccer, it's wrestling. And I don't want to, again, I want to get on that. We're going to wrap it up in a minute, but I don't want to get on that point. I know where you're coming from, but to wrap it up as far as the diatribe of Connecticut football is concerned, they take a kid that's a freshman that's lights out and they put him in the varsity. You don't develop them.
Right.
Okay, why? Because they want to win. I understand that.
Yeah, but you should have that kid on the sideline working with the varsity,
But
not
that's not,
playing
what they
yet.
do.
No, I know.
That's what they do.
No, I
And
know.
listen, and that's especially like in the CIC and the small conferences, like the Class M's. That's what they do.
Like I think your
And you go-
freshman and junior varsity should be suited up for varsity games and should be there.
Right.
And should be
Learning.
there.
I get it,
Right.
and the experience, but at the same time, in the big programs and the FCAC, it's not how it happens. It's,
The last thing I want to say in terms of the funneling from youth into high school, because I don't want to come off and say that there's no value, and I do think there's value. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm meeting with the New Milford football head coach, so we can look at my playbook. So that you know what. Terminology, fine. You want to call my wingback a flanker? We call him a flanker. You want to call my halfback a quarterback? Call him a quarterback. Things like that. There's a certain play that you want to add in that you think could lead into something. Fine, we can do that. I'm not saying that my playbook is closed and I don't want input from anybody. I mean, I go to coaching seminars. Last March, I spent 3 days in Pennsylvania at a coaching seminar just to get better, learn from other coaches. I mean, I have no problem learning from other coaches. That's not what it's. It's not an ego thing.
Right.
My playbook is not my playbook. I didn't come up with none of this stuff. Right? It's not like I have a big ego about it. It's just that, at the same time, I want the kids to succeed. And what I have, I'm not going to say what I do or what I invented, because I didn't invent it. But what I have access to, this shit works. So let's win some games, because I'll tell you what, if we win a bunch of football games and win a state championship or 2, then you get more football players. You get more football players, you get a better chance of picking up the athlete. You get the athlete. It all adds
It all works
into it,
together.
right? So again, winning fixes everything. And so that was the biggest thing for us.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more.
Winning fixes
Fixes
everything.
everything. Winning begets.
On that note,
We're going to wrap it up. Coach Steve, thanks for coming. Thank you very much for having me. appreciate that, man. We'll get you back
Thanks
here
for
as
having
soon
me.
as
Good luck this
possible.
year.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Guys, the Matt Chat Podcast, Paul Ciano, Frank Ciano, Chris Shea, Peter Oberg, Coach Stephen Glyko. We're going to catch you guys next time. And no discipline stick today.
Let's go to Milford! Yeah!